HDB just launched 6,952 flats across 7 projects in Ang Mo Kio, Bishan, Bukit Merah, Sembawang, and Woodlands for the sale under the June 2026 BTO exercise. And in this video, I'm going to discuss the indicative price for every single flat type as well as what are the comparable resale transaction in nearby area. But before that, let's start with some basics first. So in this BTO June launch, Sembawang Portico, Sembawang Brook, and also woodgrove acres is being classified as standard projects. And then for plus projects, we have Kebun Baru Ridge and also Kebun Baru Breeze, which are both located in Ang Mo Kio town. And then for prime projects, we have Lakeview Cascadia at Bishan and also Berlayar Rise at Bukit Merah. As you know, plus and prime flats come with more stringent restrictions, including a subsidy recovery upon resale. So basically, at the point of selling the flat after meeting the 10-year MOP, owners of plus and prime flats will be required to pay HDB a certain percentage of the resale or valuation price, whichever is higher of the flat. Now here are the subsidy recovery percentage. So for plus flats, it is being set at 8% for Kebun Baru Ridge and Kebun Baru Breeze. For Lakeview Cascadia, it's at 10%, and for Berlayar Rise, it is set at 14%. For reference, Berlayar Residences BTO flat that was launched in October 2025 had a 14% subsidy clawback. So this is the same with Berlayar Rise right now. So that's good. Meanwhile, for Ang Mo Kio, the subsidy clawbacks for past Ang Mo Kio BTO, for example, Central Trio, which was launched back in October 2024, was set at 6%. So as we can see, if both the Kebun Baru BTO are set at 8%, meaning there's a slight increase from 6% to 8%. But overall, I would say that the subsidy recovery percentage set by HDB is still surprisingly quite stable, because initially I was expecting the numbers to be significantly higher, let's say like more than 15% or something, or even closer to 20%. But if we are seeing here the table between 8% to 14%, objectively, this is still relatively flat versus past launches. Now let's talk about what are the price range for every flat type. Let's start with prices for 2-room Flexi Type 1. For Sembawang Portico, the price starts from $142,000 to $184,000, and then for comparison, actually the resale price in nearby area already ranges between $322,000 to $390,000. This means that the BTO price is about 47% versus the nearby resale transaction price. And then Sembawang Brook is slightly cheaper than Sembawang Portico because the price starts from $139,000. And then HDB actually gave the similar resale price because Sembawang Portico and Sembawang Brook is indeed next to each other. Surprisingly, the most affordable project in this BTO launch is actually Woodgrove Acres, because the price for 2-room Flexi Type 1 starts from $137,000, so it is even slightly cheaper than the two Sembawang projects. If we compare between Woodgrove Acres indicative maximum price for the BTO flat versus the maximum price for resale transaction, actually the BTO price is about 40% compared to the resale price, so indeed it's quite affordable compared to if you buy from the resale market. Now moving on to Kebun Baru Breeze, because the other Kebun Baru project doesn't have 2-room options, so only Kebun Baru Breeze has the 2-room Flexi option. The price starts from $191,000, and HDB did not put any nearby resale transaction, so there's no reference. But just note that for Kebun Baru Breeze, there's an 8% subsidy clawback. And then for Lakeview Cascadia, the price starts from $216,000 up to $287,000 with 10% subsidy recovery rate. And then for Berlayar Rise, the 2-room Flexi Type 1 starts from $247,000 up to $341,000 with 14% subsidy clawback. Okay, next up, let's talk about the price for 2-room Flexi Type 2, starting from Sembawang Portico. So the price starts from $157,000 to $225,000, which is about 57% out of the resale maximum price. And then for Sembawang Brook, the price starts from $164,000 to $218,000. I think for me personally, I'm a little bit surprised that Sembawang Portico and Sembawang Brook doesn't have the exact same pricing, Considering these two projects are actually like literally side by side, so I don't know why the price is very different. And then for Woodgrove Acres, the price starts from $164,000 to $211,000, and it looks like it's actually quite a good deal because if you see the resale transaction for nearby locations, right, you see the resale prices are actually relatively higher for Woodlands area, but then you can buy it for a cheaper price versus Sembawang Brook. So I think, if you want a good deal, Woodgrove Acres seems to be a sensible choice from financial standpoint. But of course, you need to consider the whole package, including like location, nearby amenities, etc. And then next, let's talk about Kebun Baru Breeze. So the price for two-room Flexi Type 2 starts from $255,000 to $349,000 with 8% subsidy clawback, while Lakeview Cascadia starts from $257,000 to $361,000 with 10% subsidy clawback, and Berlayar Rise is starting just under $300,000 up to $406,000 with 14% subsidy clawback. FYI that the price indicated here is before housing grant. So if let's say you are eligible for grants, then you can buy the BTO even for cheaper price. Next up, let's talk about pricing for three-room flats, starting with Sembawang Portico. So the price for Sembawang Portico starts from $250,000 up to $344,000, whereas Sembawang Brook starts from $257,000 to $333,000. In terms of nearby resale transaction price, it seems like the price is like $500,000 onwards. So if we compare between the maximum indicative price versus the maximum resale price, this is the percentage that you get. Next up, we have Woodgrove Acres. So it is being offered starting from $260,000 up to $325,000, whereas the nearby resale transaction price is also more than $500,000. For Kebun Baru Ridge, a three-room flat starts from $380,000 up to just under $500,000 with 8% subsidy clawback, and Berlayar Rise starts from $435,000 up to $591,000, again before any grant. And then according to HDB data, nearby resale transaction price in Bukit Merah area, it starts from $740,000 to $771,000. If we compare the maximum price between BTO price versus resale price, it's about 76%, which means that the gap between BTO and resale price is only about 24%. And then in terms of subsidy recovery rate for Berlayar Rise, it is subjected to 14% subsidy clawback. Now let's talk about pricing for four-room flats that a lot of people are curious about. So for Sembawang Portico, the price starts from $320,000 up to $437,000, which is about 64% compared to nearby resale transaction. And then for Sembawang Brook, interestingly again, it is cheaper because the price starts from $302,000 up to $428,000. And then for Woodgrove Acres, the price starts from $353,000 up to $437,000, whereas the nearby resale transaction ranging from $650,000 up to $750,000, which is about 58% if we compare between BTO versus resale price. Next, for Kebun Baru Ridge, it starts from $543,000 up to just under $700,000, and the nearby resale transaction is already like some of them even goes beyond $1 million. Don't forget there's a 8% subsidy clawback for Kebun Baru Ridge. For Kebun Baru Breeze, the price starts from $547,000 up to $746,000. So it goes even more expensive. If we compare between BTO versus resale price, it is around 69%. So this indicates that the BTO price is not that far off from the resale price. The subsidy recovery rate for Kebun Baru Breeze is also set at 8%. Next up, we have Lakeview Cascadia, where the price is actually interestingly cheaper versus Ang Mo Kio. Why am I saying it's interesting? Because Lakeview Cascadia, if you see the map, is actually within walking distance to MRT station, whereas Kebun Baru Ridge and Kebun Baru Breeze is slightly further away from the Mayflower MRT station. So it's quite interesting that Lakeview Cascadia starting price price is actually cheaper. So it starts from $534,000 up to $742,000. Now, the resale transaction for the nearby area is kind of on the lower side compared to my expectation, because it is only ranging from $840,000 up to $950,000. I'm not sure whether this is because the comparable flats nearby is already on the older side. Maybe that's why. I'm just surprised that the maximum resale price in the nearby area doesn't go beyond $1 million already. Now, if we compare between the indicative maximum price for the BTO versus maximum resale price, it is 78%, which means that if you buy the BTO, it's only about like 22% cheaper. So the gap price is not that big. And don't forget that Lakeview Cascadia is subjected to 10% subsidy clawback, of course, on top of the 10-year MOP, cannot rent out the whole flat, etc. But then I do want to point out that Lakeview Cascadia have 745 units of 4-room flats. I think this is a very good news if you want to stay in a mature area nearby MRT station with good on-site amenities. Next up, we have Berlayar Rise, where the price starts from $592,000 up to $810,000. And then as you can see, they have 988 units of 4-room flats available. So indeed, this is a mega project. If we combine all flat types in Berlayar Rise, there are like close to 2,000 units. So indeed, it's a very big development. The positive thing about having a lot of units in one project is that when it's time for you to sell your unit, you will have a lot of comparable transactions nearby. So in general, it is relatively easier to fetch a higher price. But then again, Berlayar Rise is a prime project. It is subjected to income ceiling for future resale buyers. So that is the reality that you have to deal with. In terms of resale transaction, it is starting from $938 plus $1,000 up to just above $1 million. And don't forget the subsidy clawback is 14%. Now let's talk about 5-room flats prices. If you are interested to buy 5-room flats, there are only 3 projects that you can choose from. For Sembawang Portico, the price starts from $465,000 up to $579,000. And the nearby resale transaction is just slightly over $800,000. If we compare between the BTO price versus resale price, is about 70%. And then for Sembawang Brook, it's even cheaper because it starts from $420,000 up to $571,000 with similar nearby resale transaction. And then for Woodgrove Acres, 5-room starts from $472,000 up to $582,000 with nearby resale transaction starting from $777,000 up to beyond $800,000. I think for me, what's interesting is that for 2-room Flexi, if you remember, Woodgrove Acres is actually cheaper versus the 2 Sembawang BTO projects. But then for 5-room, Woodgrove Acres is significantly more expensive versus Sembawang Portico and Sembawang Brook. So I don't know why this is the case. Let me know in the comment section down below if you have any theory why this is so. Why certain flat type is cheaper in certain projects but more expensive in other projects. Last but not least, if you are interested in 3-gen flats, you have only one option, which is at Sembawang Brook, and the price is, objectively is actually very appealing because it starts from $468,000 up to $567,000, which is really appealing, especially for 3-gen, because 3-gen basically has 2 master bedroom, right? So that's really interesting. I think the only caveat with Sembawang Brook is that at the moment it is far away from any MRT station, so you have to take a feeder bus. But if the Sembawang Shipyard transformation plan actually pushes through, there's possibility that they might build another MRT station nearby, but we don't know any details at the moment. But I find it interesting. If you do have the budget for it and you are open-minded to apply for Sembawang location, I think this is a very appealing price. In summary, if I'm being very objective, I would sincerely give an applause to HDB for keeping flat prices relatively steady and affordable for the everyday Singaporean. Why? Because when you look at the entry-level prices, let's just take 4-room flat as an example. The trend is actually quite reassuring. So back in the October 2025 BTO exercise, the cheapest four-room flat started at $343,000. By February 2026, that base price dropped to $304,000, and in this current June 2026 launch, you can find a four-room flat starting even lower at $302,000 in the Sembawang Brook project. I know, of course, we can say that the price depends on the location, blah blah blah, but then it's quite reassuring that the trend is relatively flat. Seeing these starting prices dip and hold under the $310,000 mark for four-room flat is a massive win for first-time buyers, especially when you look at the bigger picture. Because right now, every day things are getting noticeably more expensive because of inflation, and the global geopolitical situation is also keeping supply chains and construction costs under constant pressure. So the fact that HDB is managing to shield the home buyers from these macroeconomic spikes, deliberately pricing the standard flats reasonably while using targeted subsidies on plus and prime projects, shows a real commitment to public housing affordability. And again, I'm just talking very objectively. I am very neutral, not leaning to any political party. This is really like genuine assessment. Of course, if you want to say, hey, how come berlayar rice price is more expensive versus berlayar residences, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the plus and prime flats, of course lah, there will be some increase. But then if you want to have affordable flats, then you pick in the non-mature areas. If you want to stretch your budget for prime city fringe living, options like berlayar rise or lakeview cascadia, of course, again will cross that $500,000 to $700,000 mark. But the beautiful thing about the current BTO framework is that you have choices. If your primary goal is to own a comfortable home without being buried under a mountain of debt, HDB has ensured that solid functional options remain firmly within reach for young families and average wage earners. But what do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye. To support my work, you can give a one-time tip by pressing the thanks button, pick the amount that you want, and click buy and send. Or you can also press the join button for exclusive contents and monthly membership. Your support means a lot to keep us independent. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye!